Today on Chat Off the Mat, I welcome Mara Marchesi, also known as the Intuition Queen. She is an intuitive and creative life coach and a psychic healer, and also a Reiki healer. She empowers entrepreneurs and creative souls to free themselves from limitations and activate their abundance frequency. She uses color therapy, human design, oracle cards, and her amazing intuition, and so much more to help her clients with what they want to achieve. Welcome to Chat Off the Mat.
Thank you so much, Rosie, for having me,
I'm
Rose.
so excited. Oh, Rosie's fine. That's people used to call me that, and they still do. I love that. I'm so excited that you're here. I know we've met, and you did a reading for me a while back. I'll talk about that later on. But I would like to start by having you tell the listeners a bit about your own personal journey and how you found your purpose as the intuition queen.
Oh, okay. Well, my journey started, so I'm Italian, and my journey kind of started when I moved to London in 2009. Always felt this major calling that London was my place, and I couldn't really figure that out why. But London always felt different from anybody else, and I always felt like I can tell you now, my soul was at home, and London has been the place where I learned to be who I am, and where I learned to uh, kind of by accident, but probably not that much by accident, where I learned to understand and follow who I was meant to become. Um, and so when I moved here, I read the Secret, which took me on a journey of self discovery and learning about the law of attraction and all of those kind of things. And the beginning, that was just something that would make me happy because I knew that I could get more from my life despite having grew up in a very simple family where my parents, they were kind of like you go to school, you go to work, you find a job, you try to not leave that job, and you have a family, and this is your life. And and you can't get better because you can't have more from your life because we were born like this. I didn't go to university when my parents, when I said to them that I had a thought about going to university, my mom said, "Okay, you're gonna have to pay for it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let me go to work then." And so was the mindset of my parents, but there was something within me that kept saying, "You can have more, you can be more." Um, and this is what happened when I was here. So as I started to read the books and watch all the videos of Jack Canfield, Les Brown, and all of those people, I started to implement all of the things that were written in the books and things like that. And I could see how things were changing for me. And so I started to kind of, whenever someone was coming to me, I always been that kind of person people feel like they need to talk to. And so I started to suggest things. And the more I did this, the more people were coming to me even more, to a point where a friend of mine was like, "You should stop looking at these people as someone that is far there and become one. Like, you can be a coach." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, nah, I mean, like, those people are millionaires. Like, look at me, I'm barely getting to the end of the month. I'm trying to figure out how to change job and things like that." But that conversation kind of stuck to me, and so I started to look into it. Like, but I at that time I didn't have enough money. Money has always been a struggle for me. And then eventually, I started to then kind of look into it a little bit more and start to say, I want to be a life coach, or one day I will be a life coach, but never really taking action. Um, and then, yeah, my financial situation got better, but still I wasn't taking action. And then my dad passed away, and that was kind of sudden. Um, And in that moment, I got really scared, not because of my dad passing away, but because I realized that, every time we put aside a dream, or we kind of say, yeah, when this happens, then you don't really know what can happen. I started to have all those thoughts about, what if something happens to my mom, and what if this, and what is that, and what if this happens and I haven't done this. And that's what really triggered me to really do what I said I was going to do. And so the year after, I signed up to do a coaching academy, and that's where slowly I got in touch with everything that I am now. But that was the catalyst for me to really be like, okay, uh, stop the bullshit, stop everything. Now it's about time you start taking action for real on what is your purpose and what you say it's your dream. And yeah, and so I started as with a coaching academy in Australia, and that's where I learned to be. Uh, I learned that I was an intuitive and creative coach, which was kind of like a no brainer, but like you never really think about that. And then I was doing the exercise, of like, of course I am this. And yeah, and so from that, a different kind of journey started, and I got into a lot of different things, but I could talk forever. So maybe you want to
No,
ask me
it's
a
great.
question.
No, I love your story. And you said you discovered you were an intuitive and creative coach. Were you always, I know you must have always been intuitive, probably as a
Uh,
young child, but what made you, how did you discover that was what you wanted to be? You said you took a test, or like,
Well,
what were just
there
questions
were
that,
questions. Yeah,
yeah.
there were questions at the end of I think towards the end of the course, like, or almost towards the end of the course, where they were trying to help you to figure out what you could be, because obviously for a lot of people that wasn't a definite. A lot of people that have taken the course with me, or that taken courses before after me, I've seen their journey moving through things. For me, the journey has always been that, like, I always been, but I say that, of course, because I always been extremely creative. Um, and I always follow my intuition. I moved to London because I follow my intuition. I accepted certain jobs rather than others, which were logically more appropriate in terms of money and a lot of things. I always made the most important decisions of my life because my intuition told me so, and I always been intuitive in terms of feeling people's energies. I always had this thing where if someone came to me and came close enough to me, or I would shake the hand and, hi, nice to meet you, something within me would say, just stay away from this person, or, oh my God, this person is so nice. And a lot of the times when I was with my friends, I just couldn't explain what that meant. I would just say, look, I just cannot stand that person. Don't ask me why. But because my friends started to get to know and understand that when I said something like that, eventually that will become like, there will be situations where that will show up like true, then they stop questioning me. And so I always had that. I just never knew how to explain it. And then I learned that I channel energy, and so I can figure out someone, a lot of things, by just talking to a person, and oftentimes when the energy is very heavy or it's very powerful, just by being close to the person without really having to talk to that person. And so that's why I say I always been intuitive. I've always been creative. Everything in my life has been like that. The the fact that I always been attuned to colors, energies, it made me that create. Like, I always used. I I'm gonna say something that I've never said, never talk about it. But you know how we have Facebook now,
Mhm.
and back in the days, I was a major Take That fan, which is a British pop group of the 90s, which they're still going. But I don't know if you know Robbie Williams, that's the group he came from. And in order for me to connect to fans that were either on other places in Italy or outside of Italy, and therefore UK or other places, we would write letters, pen pals.
Right.
But also there were those friendship books, they were called. And so basically you would stack a few pieces of paper together, let's say five. I would write down the first part, the first piece of paper with my address, who I was, who I liked. And then decorate it and then put it into the letter of the next person, my pen pal from wherever. And so this is what I used to do when I was a teenager because I was obsessed with them. And this is what brought me to be fascinated about England, brought me to want to learn English properly because I wanted to understand what they were saying. And and so we used to decorate those things with everything, glitters, anything, all kind of. I would buy all kind of pens, colorful, anything
Mm.
to make it, and that really gave me a lot of joy. But just to give you one example, so when I was answering those questions, I was like, of course I'm all of those things. Of course, this is what it gets down to. This is who I am. So yeah, so that's how I kind of came up with that. And then life kind of confirmed every time that this is who I am. Because I had moments, especially when I started to work with my business coach, where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be this. Maybe this is not clear for people. Maybe, and every time I was doubting myself on that, there something would happen for which I was like, okay, no, this is
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You really trusted yourself. You really listened to yourself, and you're talking, and I sometimes also get these kind of intuitive or energetic visions as I'm speaking to the people that I'm interviewing. And I thought about Michelangelo, as we say in Italian, and how he looked at a piece of stone, and from that stone emerged what was theoretically in that stone. So he just carved away, and you always had this inside of you to be this creative and intuitive person that helps others on their journey. So they just emerged, but you always knew that was always a part of your essence. It wasn't
yeah,
something that um I don't know, it's just who you are. And a lot of people
yeah,
don't trust those messages that they listen to or that guidance. And a lot of times they don't move forward because they're afraid to. They don't trust that's who they can be. But
yeah.
you did. So let's talk a little bit about color therapy that you do and that I know you love to do. How does it how do you use it, and how does it help people become more in alignment with either their life's purpose or messages that they want to hear, or a guidance, maybe like a guiding system for them?
Yeah. So color therapy has a lot of different ways to do it. There are different modalities to use colors, but just for people to understand, even if you don't know it, you are influenced by colors, either in a positive way or in a negative way. So, when we're like, oh, like I think the easiest example is, oh, I'm really loving this color this season, and you start buying all blues. And it's not because you bought a skirt that is has some blue patterns, but it's because that color attracts you for a reason. And then you have to match with a shirt, and then you have to match it with, I don't know, shoes and this and that. And then you start to buy all of those things, and without you realizing, you are buying a lot of blue stuff. And then maybe, I don't know, you buy things for your home, whatever. And this is the easiest way to explain to you that you being attracted by that particular color has a meaning for you. Like you being, when you dislike a color, there is also something in the energy of that color that is kind of resonating with you, but you don't want to. There is a reason for it. And the way I use color is only one part of what the whole of color therapy is. We have colors based on our um, the day we are born. So with the date of birth, I can figure out what are your colors. I color in your color chart because there are meanings to each color. So your day means the energy that you were born with. The month and the year mean basically the path that you need to move through, and the last number, which is mm, sum of all your numbers, it's your life mission. So every number has a color attached to it, and will tell you kind of the positive of and the negative of that energy. When I started it, I was just really curious about it because I always loved colors, always been extremely colorful. Color just made me really happy. And everything started because I went to do an aura reading the year after my dad passed away. My friend was like, "Oh, you need to do cord cutting with him because there is still a lot of heavy energy and you're still very much attached to him. And it's been a year and you really shouldn't be that much attached, also because of the fact that you've been away and the kind of relationship you had with your dad." So I went there to do that, and she also did an aura reading to me, and that kind of fascinated me so much. I was like, "What? Do I have a color? What is this?" So that's how I got into color therapy, and I learned there is the same color called color therapy. I was like, "Oh my god, I need to use it," and so I started to get really curious about it, and I found this way to read colors. So at the beginning, that was just me wanting to learn more. And so I started to do color readings, if you want to call it that way, to my friends and be like, "Okay, you can tell me your date of birth and let me tell you what are your colors." But what I realized doing that is that I started to feel things when I was writing down what the color meant that were not my feeling. And I started to go into places that had nothing to do with me. Like, a friend would be like, "Oh yeah, I mean, like, I'm struggling with this situation," or maybe I knew because we were friends, and so I knew. And suddenly, I was flooded with those information and emotions, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then I realized I was channeling their information, and I started to go like, "I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling that, and I'm seeing this situation." And then my friends are like, "How do you know?" And I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing, just telling you." And so then, like, at that point, I knew enough to understand what was going on with me and what was happening with that. But then there was also a friend of mine was a channeler who kind of helped me to understand a little bit more, and who's the one that gave me the intuition queen name because she said that spirit wanted me to have that name. And so that's how everything started. So when you have a color, I now call it soul alchemy, but it's a color therapy session. I basically tell you, I'm able to get into your energy, in the energy of your soul, and pinpoint what is it that is blocking you. And that could be a particular emotion. That could be a specific situation of your past life. And sometimes I also envision other colors that you might need to use. So it could be just the color that you have in your chart with all the information that come through it. Or sometimes I just feel like, okay, those are your colors, but right now you need to use this, and that for this and this reason. So it's very, the moment I start to channel the information, I start to tune into the energy of the person because I need to prepare a little bit before we have the session, and I want to be sure that I'm getting the right information. So as I'm channeling the colors, then information start to come through, and normally every client that I had a session with, they were like, "Yeah, that's it." And so, and that then I help with my coaching and everything else to find ways to help yourself to either release that energy or um, heal that part of yourself, whatever comes through.
Yes. And so this is probably a great time for me to talk about that I had a soul alchemy coaching session and was absolutely blown away. First, I never even knew what it was. So I was very drawn to that. And I too love colors. I mean, I'm right now I'm wearing bright orange because that is kind of my main color. But what I wanted to say, and this, it was very different from any other reading that I've had. And I've had psychic readings, astrological readings, all different types. But you really channeled, and I never knew you or met you before, didn't know really much about your work at the time, but you channeled some very, very specific, what led to specific issues that I had as a child, not issues, turning points in my life
Yeah.
that you helped me identify. I was like, wow, that really, that is why this is happening and this is happening. And I was just blown away by that. It was amazing. And no one ever really identified that for me. So it really gave me some healing um, about that part and helped me identify or validate the path I'm on now.
Yeah.
Maybe it was so just I'll just talk about it quickly. At one point, most of my youth, I wanted to be a journalist. And then one of my parents suggested that I try something different because it was a very difficult journey. Probably because I was a young woman at the time where the whole journalistic or journal field was a man. I wanted to be a broadcaster, and it was all men. I don't know what his reason was, but I pivoted at that point. I changed. Okay, I'm like, okay, you're right. You know, I trusted his guidance, and I changed. And I think all these years I've been like, "Ah, what would have happened? You know, and so now I'm circling back to doing this, and it is something that I could say is very similar to being a journalist, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this. So you really pinpoint that and help me heal a very very important part of my youth. And not only that, you uncover these colors and this color therapy and so much more, and how I am able to use certain colors to help heal other parts of my life.
Yeah.
Um, like why I'm having this obsession with pink all of a sudden, which I never liked. And you said pink is my color, one of my colors I need to work with now for my heart space. And you always think green is the color of healing, but I mean pink. And so yeah, when you're drawn, like you said, you're drawn to certain colors, and those colors are helping you heal a part of you somewhere in your chakras. But you also said that sometimes you're drawn to colors that you dislike. Are those some of the colors that perhaps you need because or the
Yeah.
energy of that color in
Yeah.
order to hear maybe
So
something a subconscious?
yeah, yeah. So, you know how oftentimes we are resistant to things, or maybe we're not aware enough to realize that we are being resistant, or maybe, I'm someone that works a lot on myself, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, but not this topic right now because I need to focus on this, right? And so colors have that effect to you. So you don't like a particular color because that color means something. And I'm going to give you a very easy example for people to understand. I was having a session with this client, and she came to me because she wanted to do kind of a brand color session. Like she wanted to understand her colors so that maybe she could use them in her brand. And I started channeling it wasn't a color that she had in her chart, but I started channeling something from a past life related to her having fun and her sexual energy and the need that she had to use orange. And she was like, I really don't like that color. I was like, I get it, but and we started to go into it. She was like, it's not the first time that I hear this from someone that channels energy. I know there is this topic that I should be looking at. I am not ready, and all of that. So we went into all of this. So we finished the session. That's it. Fine. And then a couple of months afterwards, she tags me on a story where she turned her hair orange,
Wow.
and she was like thank you to blah 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 blah. And so I spoke to her. She's like, it just whatever you said just kept
Mm,
staying with me. And as much as I kept not like it orange, then I couldn't stop seeing orange everywhere. And so at some point I decided to give in and really look at what is it that I needed to release and work on. And all of a sudden I started loving this color. And so like when the hairdresser was like, this will suit you well, I was like, oh my God, yes. And so I really feel very comfortable with this color in my hair. I feel very confident, and I just needed to let you know. And I was like, I knew it. It just, but we need to also be ready to be able to work with the energy. It's more about the energy than the color. But to me, it's a very fun way to do inner work, because it is true that sometimes inner work can be really intense, and you might need to go down some really heavy topics, and it can be scary for a lot of people, like it's not always easy. But at the same time, I think that we can make it fun. And so using color for me is the way to make healing work whenever there are topics that you don't want to work on or you feel resistant about, fun and easier to work with, because you're gonna wear colors to go out. You're gonna eat colors. You're gonna, flowers, and colors are everywhere. You can't really say no, I don't have any colors anywhere. Like you have furniture that
Everywhere. Right.
it's everywhere. And so sometimes it's just having someone telling you you need to work with this color, and then you have never seen that color before, and all of a sudden you see that color everywhere, and that energy works on your subconscious. And so you now associate that color with that thing that I told you you should be working on. So the moment you see, I don't know, orange flowers, you're like, oh, that. And so next time it's going to be that, oh, that. Oh, that. And then it changes the way you think about that thing that you didn't want to work on. And then until you get ready to work on it. And then when you do, all of a sudden you're in love with that color, because it becomes the color that helps you release. And so that's why for a lot of people, I'm like, okay, so if you don't like this color, tune into this color. What does this color need to tell you? But for me, it's a great way to do healing work, and for me, it's also very easy because I channel colors even if I'm having a normal conversation with people. It's just the way I get information about what they're meant to be doing or not doing, and so or look at. So it's just an easy way for me. But I think that for a lot of my clients, it's been a fun way to do something that oftentimes is not easy to do.
Yeah, it is, and energy. Colors have energy. We have crystals, right? Crystals have different energy and colors. We have when we wear certain clothing, a person can feel empowered. So it's not just the color, but how we use the color. And there's multiple ways to use a color. Just like you said with the pink for me, you brought that out as one of my colors, and I had been recently drawn, and I never liked pink before, never, so resistant to pink. But now it's like, oh, I go out and I'm looking for pink clothes, and it's very trending as well. So I went to a gem show yesterday in the city at the Museum of Natural History. I was so fortunate I was there, and there was this gem show, and it was had to be like thousands and thousands of crystals and gems. And every time I saw a blue topaz or something blue, it was like I wanted to take it home because blue resonates with me. Although it wasn't one of the colors
Yeah.
that you brought up or you mentioned, I know that color blue represents something for me, and that's communication, which is your
Look what
throat
I'm
chakra.
wearing.
And you're wearing blue. And that's a nice blue. It's a very royal blue. Yeah. And
Yeah.
although I love orange, I don't think I would ever be brave enough to make my hair orange. So maybe a little red tint, but that's about it. So let's talk a little bit about how people can resist. So taking or working on yourself can be difficult because you can uncover things that may not be comfortable for a person. Do you ever come across a person who's like, no, I really don't want to do any of the work or partial of the work? And how do you approach a person like that who comes to you for coaching, but then you're giving them assignments, and that happens to me as well. You're giving them tools to use, and they're like, I'll do this and I won't do that, or I think I'll do that. But do you have
Yeah,
those
of
type of
course.
yeah, and how do you kind of work through that with them?
Well, there are two type of people for me, at least for what I've seen in my history. So there are the people that are resistant, like I really don't want to do this exercise that you're giving me. I'm like, okay, well, try and see what happens. If you really feel like it's heavy on you and you really cannot do it, then stop. But don't don't just dismiss it because it feels like it's something difficult, because it might be just the easiest exercise that you have to do for the next session. Because this is what happened to me, especially at the very beginning that I started coaching. I had a client that was like, I'm telling you now, this is really heavy for me to do, but I'll do this. And then the next session she was like, oh my god, this was the heaviest that I thought was exercise that I thought were going to be, and actually this was super easy, and I really struggled with this that I thought was going to be easy. So
Mm,
I use that example a lot with my clients when they are resistant. But at the same time, if I have a client that is truly struggling but is doing the work, I don't really care if I gave that person 10 things to do for the next session and they've done 5, because to me it's the process of movement in those 5 things. Maybe they had more movement doing 5 rather than doing 10, because sometimes people get overwhelmed, or and
right.
mind goes in the way. And then I had a couple of situations actually, where I had people that would continue to do the work, the sessions, but it's very clear that they are not doing anything. And so with that clients, I had to do something with myself really, which was understand what kind of clients I want to work with and what kind of clients I don't want to work with. Because it's a waste of time and money for you that you're paying me to do this. It's a waste of time and energy for me. And although I appreciate being paid for what I do, I also want to work with people that want to work, because the transformation that I am able to guide the client with, it's incredible. And I'm not saying it because I think I'm amazing. I am saying it because my clients have always told me this, and because I'm someone that does a lot of work on herself, a lot. And I've gone through a lot of very tricky situations. So I know it firsthand what it means to be in certain situations. And I know what it means to do the work and come out of that situation feeling like you never really thought you were going to feel, or shifting something like in a way that didn't even cross your mind. Like, this is not going to happen to me. And then it happens to you because you did the work. So in that situations, it didn't happen to me many times, but when it did, I just looked into within myself and I was like, why did I attract this client that at the very beginning felt like, oh my god, you are the right person, I need to work with you, yes, this is the money, go. And then as we move through, they didn't want to do the work. And it is an energy situation for me. And what I found, or it happened to me in situations where I maybe needed money. And so maybe I didn't totally listen to what I knew. With this client that I told you, I remember I told her, look, I don't think you're ready to work with me. It's going to be heavy. Like I say to my clients, it's going to be intense at times, and you might not want to do the work, but I need you to make a commitment to yourself, because it's really not for me. It's a commitment to yourself. And if you
Mm,
commit to yourself, I need you to commit and do the thing. And I'm here to guide you, and I'm here for you, but I need you to do the work. And I'm okay with you feeling scared or overwhelmed. Let's talk about it. And so that happened because I was in a situation where I was like, you're not ready, so maybe just think about it. And she came back to me being like, no, 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 I'm ready, I'm ready. And at that point, I also needed the money. And so I think that combination kind of attracted a person that would pay me but then would make my work very difficult because it was also very frustrating for me to find someone that you could tell. And even if I asked, obviously she wouldn't say she never did but you can tell when someone doesn't do the work because the resistant person that does half of the things that you give them to do or does it and then sees it through, you can see it from the way they talk to you about it
Mm.
and what comes through and how they want to figure out how to actually be able to do everything that you give them to do. The ones that don't want to work, that want kind of take the piss a little bit, and they're like, yeah, I've done the work, and it's so normally it's like, oh yeah, so I've done this, and I've done this, and they want to tell you straight away immediately, so you get it out of the way and you don't talk about it. And when you go back, because I always circle back, it's always like a very short and quick answer. There is no emotion. There is no way to see how difficult was that for you, what emotion came through when you started doing it. I'm okay when I have people telling me, Mara, I really couldn't do this. Like I tried twice, and this time I felt like this, and this time I started crying. I really just couldn't do it. To me, that's an improvement.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
show me that you tried and it's just too painful, and maybe we need to do some more work before you can actually do that kind of exercise. And that's fine. I appreciate that of you. When you don't do it, what you're telling me is that you don't believe that what I'm giving you makes any sense. And but what's happening is that you're not committing to yourself. It's not about me. It really is not. It's about you and your healing and your process and your movement forward. And so the two times that happened to me, I just went back to myself and was like, why did I attract this client? And so I raised the bar of what kind of clients I want to have in my life and what kind of clients I want to work with, because I know what I bring to the table and how I can help you because of my experience and all of the things that I've studied, and I continue to study because I'm obsessed with this work. But and I if I promise you something, I will deliver that, and I know that. And so it was always about what was happening in my life at that point in time for me to attract that client.
Mm.
And every time there was something, and every time, because the story for me that keeps on being mirrored back to me, it's about money, because it's about the relationship with my mom. My mom is a narcissist, and how I always struggle with money because I never really value myself enough. And so that relationship that I have with money and myself, my self-worth, and my mom keeps coming back at me. So I learned to understand it. So every time I was like, okay, let's sit down and figure out why this happened. And so I it didn't happen to me much, but the two times this was the situation.
And I'm assuming that, I don't like using that word, but there are a lot of people out there that struggle with the mindset over money, lack of money, which is partially lack of self-worth. But what are a lot of the struggles that or common struggles that you see your clients experiencing? Is it around money? Is it around not finding life's true purpose? What do you see as mostly coming out? Because I'm sure a lot of it will resonate with the listeners here.
Well, the way money show up or don't show up in your life, it's a consequence. It's really not the problem. The problem is figuring out what is your inner child wound. And so um, there are a lot of things. Not feeling good enough. It's probably the emotion that we all have to an extent. Some of us have it a lot, some of us have it a little. Not feeling supported or seen, um, having grown up in an environment that wasn't loving, that wasn't supporting, that wasn't empowering, but was chaotic and controlling, where maybe you had to, you know, try to figure out how to keep yourself safe and not necessarily how to be yourself. So normally those are the things that in a way or in another show up in everybody. And it's always how you were able to be yourself and how you were not. And so if you weren't able to be yourself 100%, then surely you won't feel good enough. You won't feel like you can charge enough. You won't feel like you can have certain clients. You won't feel like you can't attract the right person. And so you're going to constantly be reminded, and you might be fixated on wanting to find the right partner and the love of your life, or you might be fixated on creating a business that thrives, or whatever that is, the thing for you. But that is business, that is love, that is whatever. It's gonna come back at you in all aspect of your life. And so if you don't feel loved enough, then love won't come unconditionally in your partnership, in your friendships, in your colleagues, and all of that. So it really is about figuring out what is it for you, that thing that is related to how you see yourself. How do you feel worthy of what? And but there are so many nuances that, like, I had a session like last week with a client, and what came through was the of course she was born in an environment that wasn't safe and all of that. And for her the problem was everything is conditional, and I cannot have support, because if I ask you for support, first of all, I'm not going to ask you for support. Even if I'm drowning, I'm just going to find a way to figure it out. And if you give me support, then I have to find a way to give you back straight away.
Right.
And so this was related to her business and money, because she's in a weird situation. And it was all about how she perceived herself and everything within her. And and we uncovered a lot of traumas, because she figured out at 21 that her dad wasn't her biological dad, and so she felt a burden, and all of those things might seem just related to your personal story, but your personal story is going to just amplify in everything that comes through your life. And so in love and in money and in success and all of that, because it define all of those things are defined by how you feel about you. And so there is a lot behind it.
Right. And until you understand it and are willing to work on that, it's really going to continuously affect your life,
Yeah.
all aspects of your life. Like that.
Yeah.
That's very powerful. I know one of the things that for me personally, I'm working on is when something, especially in relationships, everything's a relationship, right? If you're married or if you have kids or you have a sibling relationship, something triggers me about something that either they say something or do something and I'm triggered. In the past, I would react. Now pause. I immediately put the brakes on and try to identify, all right, why am I feeling this way? Where am I feeling this way? What can I do to overcome that? So it's like, I've got this like playbook in my head trying to determine so that I can take away that trigger and have a healthier relationship either with them or just even with myself. They may continue to trigger or say things but I don't have to react a certain way or feel a
Yeah.
certain way because it's very heavy and it's like, all right, well, I really don't want to live the rest of my life feeling that way. I want to be happy and but it's work. It takes a lot of work. And although I didn't ask, like, what are some of the ways or questions that you help people dive deeper? I'm assuming that you're very similar to that. Like, okay, why is that triggering you? Right. So,
Oh yeah. I what I always say to my clients, I really want to go down to the root cause
Yeah.
of the
See,
problem,
we're both
you
doing
know?
this. We're like
And I'm
pointing
doing
our
this. Yeah,
fingers down to the earth, like,
exactly.
what is that
Yeah,
exactly?
like I always say. So that's why if someone works with me for for 12 sessions, could be 6 months or 3 months, depending on how they want to do it. But like I always say, this is going to be intense because this is what I want to do, because this is where you find the transformation within yourself. Because I am not someone that stays on the surface. Like, even if you were my friend and we weren't doing this, you would know. I'm someone that goes deep because I want to understand. That's just part of just my energy, just the way I am. Like, I want to know, I want to understand, so then I know what to do. It's always been like that for me. And so it is obviously it really depends where you're at in your life, because maybe you're someone that has done some work and that has a little bit of awareness and understanding, and maybe the situation that we're talking about is not that deep, and so we might release it quickly enough. And for some other, it just so much layers and so much layers, and so you need to really peel off one layer at a time until you can go as close to the actual reason for it. And sometimes you might just need time and space after you've done certain work to then uncover something. Like, my journey has been, you know, I started doing this like properly probably in 2014 or something like that. Like, I was always on the surface up until that point, and then I started to go a little deeper. And I had no idea, for example, that the reason why at the very beginning I was struggling with money and getting money from my clients was because subconsciously I didn't think I could pull this off,
Mm,
because in my subconscious there was this information that if I become successful, then my mom will come and take it away somehow, right? And if you grow up with a narcissistic father or mother, this is a theme for you, because what a narcissistic person does is they won't allow you to be happy and successful and, enjoy that. They will need to find a way to tone that down because it triggers them. And so you will have these situations over and over. Betrayal is going to be something that it's in your energy. And so I knew that a lot of things were related to the relationship with my mom. So I did a lot of work on that. But for me, the catalyst was when I went back to Italy, because being here, my mom wouldn't trigger me that much because I could hang up the phone if she was being annoying. Um, I went home for max 5 days, and then I knew that was enough. Um, and with my dad passing away, then I started feeling guilty, so I started going there a bit more, and there was a lot of things going on, but I felt like I was still doing good. And then I my soul decided that I needed to move back to Italy. And so in 2021, March 2021, I moved back to Italy, and in my head my business was going well. I had a part-time job that my boss was looking for someone to replace me, but I told her, look, we're all working from home, take your time, I'm working from here. She was like, yeah, okay, great, thank you so much. So I had those two situations. Business was going well. My head said, moving back home, just gonna take it easy, find the right place, and then enjoy the sun and this and that. That wasn't it. The
mm,
moment all the boxes arrived, my mom started to show her color. And what happened was that I had forgotten about it. I had forgotten how deeply fearful I was of her. And so my fear when I was 16, 20 came back full force. Just I was 38, 39 when I 38 when I moved back. Doing what I'm doing, and I'm feeling like, and I'm like, What's going on? How, like, my nervous system was out of this place. And I was like, I can't breathe. I don't know what to do. And so I started working with my heat. I started to try to put as many boundaries as I could, but it really was difficult. And I started working with my healer, and I started going against her and really, really standing up to myself and start, like you said earlier, it's about learning to not be triggered by all of the things that they're throwing at you, because some of the things is just normal conversation that triggers you.
Right.
But some of the things a lot of people do is their projection or their need to trigger you and to set you off.
Mm.
And so for me, like, the relationship with my mom was, she would do or say something, I would get upset, and then we would go off at each other, like saying anything. And then I will stay mad because I was like, you said all of those things. That's not acceptable. And she will pretend that nothing had happened.
Right.
And so there was a it was the whole
It's
story.
cycle.
And
There's a
so
whole cycle.
it's cycle. And so for me, it was about learning to allow her to say whatever she wanted to say, because it had nothing to do with me. So at that point, I had done enough work to realize that she suffered her own wounds when she was a child, and she was like she was because that's her journey. And I had tried before, and I knew that I couldn't do anything despite all of the tools that I learned and that I have. So that was the acceptance of, I am here in this situation because there is a reason. I know my soul called me to come here, and she will tell me why at some point. And she is what she is. There is nothing I can do to change her because she doesn't want to. She doesn't see it. I'm the wrong person. She has everything in the right place. So I just need to stop fighting this. Accept what is, work on myself, and let her be. And I shifted a lot of things simply because I started ignoring everything she said. And I started and obviously that was very triggering for her because she couldn't get to me. But eventually, what I figured out at some point, I called my healer. I was like, look, I need you because I'm just such in a bad place emotionally and I need help. I just can't figure this out on my own because I'm too terrified. And it's this fear that I have, like I don't even remember when was the last time I felt it. And so I can't work on myself from this point of being so terrified. And what I realized in the work that I did is that this fear that my mom will always sabotage my life was so deep within that would stop me from becoming successful in the way that success meant for me. Or I would do something to kind of feel like I had to protect myself. But the reality is, at that point, I didn't have to protect from anything because there wasn't a danger around me.
Right.
But you kept on reliving the same triggers. And so, and this is, I know it's something that a lot of people relate to. It's just very difficult because even for someone like me that had done a lot of work and was doing work with people, I really honestly did not realize how deep that fear was. And so that's why for me it's even more important now, because now I came out of that, and I can go deeper with people when I work with them, because now I went deeper within myself and
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, I see where that's coming from. Okay, let's go, let's do it, let's figure out. And and what I always say to my clients is like, maybe you have heard a lot of people saying, oh my god, I needed to do this, and but I'm always like, your story is different and you can only do the work that your soul is able to handle. And yes, maybe like I didn't know that my fear was that deep because I wasn't ready to go down there. I had to peel off other layers before I could actually access that level of fear.
Mm.
I was well equipped the moment I started doing work on that. If that happened to me even 5 years prior to that, no way I would have had the same resolution and the same confidence to do that kind of work, because I wasn't there. There was so much more before that had to be taken off. And so that's why I'm like, maybe your journey is going to be intense, but maybe not so much, because it depends what you need to remove first. And then once you're ready, then we can go deeper and deeper, and so it really is depending on you, on what's going on with you and how you feel ready to go, and a lot of different things. But I think that the journey is always proportional to what you can handle. It's never like something super deep when maybe you just started doing the work.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, I agree with you, and I'm listening to you, and you're telling everyone your story, and I can't help but think of what great hands someone who comes to you, and to be their coach or to help them on their journey, because you've experienced so much healing, pain and healing, and that you're constantly aware of what's happening in your life and how you can always there's always room for growth and expansion, and that you come from just an understanding of that, and having that compassion and a understanding that someone else is on their journey, someone who has triggered you or given you the experience that you know that to help, not to help, but to show you that you need to heal from something, like your mom, right? She showed you that there was something that needed healing for you, and I know that there is probably a lot of people out there who are experiencing very similar situations, and can use the healing, and use the tools. And once you have these tools in your toolbox, whatever they are, whatever you provide for them, or whatever they've learned from other people or coaches, it's really important to always, rely on those tools and to help you. Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I know your
Oh,
personal story.
my
It's
pleasure.
very powerful to have others listen to that and know that that's why you're such a great coach, just because you've experienced these things and have grown from them and can share that with others. Um, so I know you offer soul alchemy readings. That's what and then you also have now, you have a Facebook group, if you wanted to mention that, where people can connect. I know
Yeah.
I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. We'll start wrapping up. So I'll put all your links. And you want to talk about also your Facebook group that you have, where you
Yeah.
offer some live.
Yeah, it's called Soulful Success Blueprint, and I go live twice a week normally, sometimes more, uh, but I go live pretty much every Monday, depending on the week, where I talk about the current energy and some themes like what's going on, and I always talk about what I've channeled, and I pull cards, and there's always a topic that I talk about, because maybe it's coming through in my life. A lot of the times it's what clients reflect back to me. I always have this situation where I have sessions maybe during a week with 3 people and they have the same theme. And then if you're live with me, I'm always chatting and helping you to figure out things. So I have people asking me questions, and so I help them with understand a little bit more. And then I have one live where I go into human design, because this is another thing that I do. At the moment, I am kind of restructuring a little bit my offers. So there isn't a session to do a human design reading, because I am putting it together, because I don't just want to do a normal human design reading. I want to do some healing in there or something, channeling. But otherwise, you will have it if you work with me for 6 months. So those are the two lives normally, every weeks. And then I'm always there, like asking questions and talking about
Very
stuff. And
interactive, right? Yeah.
yeah. I love my community to feel supported, and to feel like they can ask questions, and there is always someone there that can help them figure things out. And then obviously, if they want to work with me, I'm always there. But I love to provide that that part of support because I find it very important. And with the work that I do, sometimes just a word with someone just helps you change and shift or understand something so major. So I'm always there helping them because I love, and then also I love chatting, so it's a perfect place.
Yeah, I know you have one today, and it's Monday now, and I'm gonna, hop on your Facebook Live later. I know there's so much I wanna talk to you more about. Maybe I'll have you on, and I would love to have you on again when you restructure your human design, 'cause
Yeah,
I know that's something I've been drawn to lately. I never knew about it, and I am also very interested in it. So when you restructure that, we can get hop back on and talk a lot
I'd
more
love
about that
that.
whole human design. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
great. It's been wonderful having you coach me as well, and having the reading, which was I have to say was I still think about it all the time, and I look at my notes from it and the recording, and it was just very powerful. So if anyone out there is interested, please contact Mara. She's amazing. She's fantastic. You will love her energy. She feels like she's like part of your family after you talk to her. That's kind of how I feel with you. And you're just a beautiful
Uh,
soul. And thank you for doing the work and for helping people and being there and being on this wonderful journey. And I am very blessed to be on this journey with you as well. So thank you for being
well,
here today.
thank you so much for your beautiful words and for having me. It's been just a pleasure to have this conversation. And yeah, thank you.